Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. In this video I want to talk to you about my new literate configuration of Emacs. The literate programming paradigm is about the combination of prose and code so that we can better document what the code is doing without compromising on the code side of things, on the programming side of things. We can combine natural language with computer language and have those two be addressed to different audiences. Natural language is for humans, and then the computer language will be given to the computer to execute what we give it to do, to perform the instructions we give it. What I have over here is an org file, protemacs.org file to be precise. And this is a large file, and it includes everything that I have pertaining to my Emacs setup. And all this is part of my Dotfiles. But before I show you the new literate configuration, let me first tell you how I used to do things and why I stopped doing that. I used to have a simple init.el that included a reference such as this one. You see the bottom part of my screen. It was a call to the org-babel load file function, and I was giving it an argument. I was giving it the value of a file system path to where I had my literate org file. And what Emacs would do at startup is it would execute org-babel load file with the file I would give it. It would extract from that file the Emacs Lisp code blocks and evaluate them, and thus make everything available for my running Emacs session. This worked fine in terms of the end result. The problem was with startup time. It was very, very slow. The reason it was slow is because at startup, we are asking Emacs, hey, load org mode, and org mode will pull in all its dependencies. Then go through this large file and load all the Emacs Lisp code blocks. And once you are done with that, then give me access to my Emacs, after the startup has happened. And we don't really need that. Org is fine, but we don't want it at startup. We don't want it to be involved at that early stage. What we want instead is to have actual Emacs Lisp code that runs at that early stage, and then org will be loaded when the time is right for it to work. So let me dismiss this window, and let me show you. Here I have the file, and here I have the directory, my Dotfiles, and I will explain how all this works right now. There is let me go here to the anatomy of my Emacs configuration, and I explain everything in detail here. This is an almost 70,000 words file, and I haven't even documented most of the things. I am getting there. I did this yesterday. There is this protemacs.org file, and this serves as the template for my entire Emacs configuration, which is a modular configuration. This org file, concretely, will generate all the files that go into my configuration. And so I use this as the single point of entry to edit the files and then to produce the files. And I will show you how this is done. And the end result, what Emacs sees when it runs, it sees these files. So the early init, the init.el, then the modules over here, and the modules themselves will call the individual libraries that I have defined. So this is what Emacs sees. It doesn't know about protemacs.org. This is just for me to work on and to document everything and to share it with the Emacs community and to generate my actual code, but not to run Emacs with this directly. So here is the idea. This is how this works. We have a combination. Let me go to a section that has it. Let's go to the early init section. We have a combination of prose, as you can see here, and the code. And let's see how this works. You will notice here that I have a small code block, just two sections, two definitions here, a variable and a macro. The technicalities do not matter, but I have a code block and I have ordinary language, natural language above it. When I evaluate this file, when I tell org to tangle to the actual files, to put the code to where it belongs, and I do that with Control-C, Control-V, Control-T, as you can see on my mode line, org babel tangle is the name of the command, and this is the default key binding. So when I do this, what Emacs does, what org does in this case, it will put what I tell it here, it will put it in the file that I specify in the tangle keyword, in the header argument. And so with this directive, I am telling org, I want you to put this code inside of the early init.el. And here I have the early init.el. Are we at the top? Let's see. We have this and we have this. And these, of course, are what I have in that code over there. Let's see the next section. You see, so I have this code block. Then I have a heading, an org heading. Then another paragraph, which also includes a link, by the way, to the previous section, which is great for documentation. And then I have another code block. You see how it is? And then again, a small code block, and this code block, when I tangle, goes exactly below the other code block. And what org does, what the org babel mechanism does in this case, is when you have consecutive code blocks that tangle to the same file, is for it to place the first block at the top of the file, then when it encounters another block, create an empty line and place the contents of the next block, after the first block, and so on. And the end result looks exactly like a file that you would have written yourself. You cannot tell that org was involved in the making of that file. It is indistinguishable to the end user or to Emacs in that case, which runs the file. Having this literate configuration is great because now I can explain myself. I can explain why each of these blocks is here and what each of these does. And when I want to link to a relevant section, I just have a link like this, and there it is, the link to the section that I am referring to. This is the idea. Now, I will show you the technicalities as well, but let me quickly switch to the Firefox version. What this org file allows me to do is to export to a web page, to export to HTML. And this is what I am doing, and let me switch to Firefox here. And you will see this is my website, and here I have the GNU Emacs configuration, and I am just publishing this on my website, and everything is here. Everything you would expect is here. Links to everything, a detailed table of contents, and you will find everything. Let's see this section where I linked to. You see, this is exactly what I had on my protemacs.org. There was a link here, and if I click on this link, I go to this other section. And so I get a web page that is rich, that is great for you to read the prose and to also check the code in context. This is the idea. I will provide a link to this .emacs page in the description of the video, so please check that as well. Let's dismiss Firefox and focus a bit on the technicalities here for how this works. Let's first see how to produce blocks that are small like this. I will show you like a demo now. I will now go and produce a new section. I will go to the end. And this is, let's suppose, a new module here. And what I will do is that I will invoke the org structure templates, and I will input the capital T template you see over there. And you see how I did it. You see the key sequence that I typed, Control C, Control comma, to enter an org structure template, and then I selected one of the templates that I have predefined. And you will notice here that I already have what I need. Here I will tell it to tangle to a file, some file, some file like this, .tel. This is a test file, and inside of this file I will simply include some Emacs Lisp code like this. Okay, this is the idea. And then I will do Control C, Control V, Control T to tangle this file, meaning to read all the code blocks and put the relevant code to the files that I am specifying. Let's see what happened with this. I did this, and here it is. It generated this sum-file.el, and if I go and check, I see that it has a hello, exactly the code that I wrote over there. Let's kill this buffer. Now, suppose that this is a long file and a longer file, but we will see this again, and more code. This is not actual code, but it doesn't really matter. What I want is to document all this. I don't want to have a large code over there, a large section over there. So what I will do is I will come where I need to introduce a demarcation line, a separator, and I will tell org, hey, how about we take this code block and split it into 2 blocks while keeping the same header directives, meaning all this part, keeping it intact, reproducing it. Control C, Control V, Control D to demarcate this code block into now 2 separate code blocks. And let me save, and let's just tangle, and let's come here and see what we have now. It still looks as one file to the end user and to Emacs. This is one file, but the way I have it here is separate blocks, and so between those blocks I can write whatever I want. This is the idea. Okay, folks? So let's kill this because we don't actually need it, and let's send this to the trash. And now let me show you the same idea with something that I spotted earlier. I have a section about not much, and so I have a module here which pertains to not much. And I started with one large block. You see, I have one large block here which contains all the configurations for not much I used to have before I started using this literate configuration. I used to have the modular Emacs configuration, but just the code. And now I am introducing the prose part to it. So here is how it works. We have this familiar section over here. You will notice that the tangle directive, now the keyword, has a directory component, the prot Emacs module, and then the /. And when you have a /, of course, this means that it is a directory. When you are specifying a directory like this, you also want to have this header argument, the make dir p yes, so that org will create the directory if it is missing. If you have lots of blocks like this, you don't need to have make dir p yes for each of them, because of course the first one will do the creation of the directory, the others don't need to be there. Of course, it is harmless. It works the same way that make dir works on the command line, so you can just keep it there if you want. But I will remove it. Okay, so I have this here. It is a to-do, meaning that I am still working on it. As I said, I wrote this yesterday. So what I want to do here is introduce a demarcation line at this point and say here something like this. For example, I will add here a comment. Oh, sorry. I want to add, I think we are, how many? Let me see. We are level 3 here. So I want to add a level 4 heading over here to do, and the way I do it is I always reference the parent module at this point, and I will say the module section about the general user interface. And the reason I reference the module is so that if I do an occur or a search for the module, I will find all the headings pertaining to it. Furthermore, this is easier if you are checking the table of contents. It is easier to quickly spot where a heading belongs rather than to just depend, on the level of depth and so on. Because at some point you just miss this. You're like, okay, I can see that this is somewhere deep, but I cannot really know what is above it. So having this, I think, for this specific case, it is very nice. It is repetitive, but it doesn't really matter. And I will do the same over here, another demarcation line and section about the presentation of search buffers. Like this. This is the idea. You will notice that these headings do not have a properties drawer the way the other headings do. This properties drawer includes a custom identifier that uniquely identifies the given heading. This is great. It is great to have this because when I create internal links between the sections, these links are unbreakable. They reference the identifier. So even if I change this wording here completely, the link will still work. The way I insert these identifiers throughout the file is with a custom command that I have. Control X, I, and I is the key binding I have for it, but this doesn't matter. I will document all this. You see the key binding that I pressed. And here it is. Now I have the properties drawers where I wanted them to be. And now when I store a link to this point over here, for example, the standard org store link, for example, let's say that this section here, this is referencing the one above, and here is how I do it. I will now insert the link like this, and let's see how this link looks. You see, here is the idea. We see this unique identifier over here, and this is great because when I export to the website, I retain these links and they are unbreakable. So if you go to the website version and you click on the table of contents, you now have the link which is unbreakable and you can share that. So this is the idea. I don't want to keep the link there now, but this is the idea why the literate configuration is great. Now, you may ask at this point, okay, this all looks good. You have everything in place. You will be documenting everything. But why do you need this prot.emacs.org to serve as the single source of truth? Why do you want this to be the file that generates all your other files? And the answer to that is because I don't want to produce a large init.el. I don't want it because it is not practical. Suppose I have someone who is in contact with me and is like, hey, Prot, can you please tell me what you have about the not much interface? Can you please share that with me? I don't want to point them to a massive init.el, and I also don't want to just link to the website and for them to hopefully find what they need. Let's say that they want just the code. What I can do is I can go to my files and tell them, hey, you need this? No problem, no stress. I will just attach it to the email and off it goes. Now you have all my code over here. If we check the code here, if we see what we have here, this is the actual code. Org is not showing up here anywhere. You don't know, you cannot tell whether this file was written by hand or was an amalgamation a combination of all those code blocks that were tangled and that were introduced into this file as a single file. And this is the idea. And I think this method over here gives me the best of both worlds. I can now document everything and share it with the Emacs community because I have a lot here, a lot of code here, a lot of customizations, and I think documenting everything in a manner that is understandable for users of diverse backgrounds with different sets of skills, I think this is of great value. And I also get to have a single point of entry to my configuration. And this is also good because I don't need to search where I put the thing. I can do it here and then I can check later for where I put it. Just a second, since I saw this, let me remove the make dir p because I don't need it for these sections. Now, let me show you what the single source of truth means. Suppose I am here in this org file and I want to make a change here. It doesn't really matter. And I will say 30 and just changed. Okay, just like this. I save the buffer and then I will do Control C, Control V, Control T to tangle, org babel tangle. And then let's produce a magit status buffer. And let's see what we have over here. Yeah, let's not worry about these because these sections are about the headings that we introduced. But let's have this. We see inside of the protemacs.org, we have this change that I made, okay? The other changes, of course, I did for demo purposes, but let's not worry. And when I tangled, I got this into the actual file. And so now I can commit my changes and say, hey, the protemacs.org did this, and I also have the protemacs.org up to date and the actual file up to date, and I am good to go in this regard. I can then go to my protemacs.org over here, and I can export when I am ready and put that on my website. I have a keyboard shortcut to export with the given HTML settings that I need. And then I copy this and I put it into my website where it should be. But not to belabor that point, not to bother you with this. Let's have this like this. And now I just removed the change I made. So let's see what happened here. You see the prot emacs not match.el is nowhere to be seen. And what I am doing here is just documentation changes. All these changes here are just documentation. So the underlying code is not affected by this. And this is the idea, folks. I am very happy to have this in place because now I can share all my work on my Dotfiles, specifically about my .emacs. I can share all this with the community. I can document everything, but I still retain the power user aspect of it, the code aspect of it, the modularity of it. And if at any point I don't need org for whatever reason, I can simply not rely on protemacs.org anymore and perform the edits in the actual files. So this is the best of both worlds in my opinion. That's all for now, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. If you check the configuration, please let me know what you think. Please bear in mind also that I wrote this and it's still a work in progress. It's already 70,000 words long, almost, but that is still little. That is still a low number because I haven't documented most of the things. Most of the modules are not documented, but you can expect documentation that is thorough, documentation that goes into every section and that furthermore provides links to relevant sections, and so you will be able to understand what is happening here. Maybe you will not understand every single snippet, every single line of code, but you will understand the idea and you will see how everything is pieced together. Okay? That's all for now, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Take care and goodbye for now.